camera than I usually am. So it matches the title too easily.
I was just thinking the same thing. Wow, it really does match
Yeah.
the title.
Yep. Yeah. So we'll talk about it anyway. So we're live, so we can mention that in the passing.
We certainly can.
Mm-hmm.
So, wow, this has so many, as always, we have lots of layers to talk about how close is too close, physically, emotionally, mentally, first date, third date, 6 months in, a year in, it'll be a
Yep.
fun conversation as always.
Oh, yeah.
Barry and I'd like to welcome you to the new streamingnetwork.com, WGSN-DB Going Solo Network Radio, TV, and podcast #1 internet singles talk network. And this is Let's Talk Dating with Christine and Barry. Hi, Barry.
Hi, Christine.
Wow. It's really is such a interesting subject because, it's so interesting how often it comes up in my coaching. I don't bring it up, but people do. And it's like, wow, it's so timely. You must find that too. And then just in general conversation, maybe it's just because it's in the front of my brain. And then I'm noticing people are talking about, they want to be closer. People are being too close. People are being too aggressive. Why aren't they being more assertive? It's just really in the air, maybe. You're nodding. So you're experiencing this too?
Yeah, well, I think the way I'd actually term it in some ways is for some people, what that being too close is an impatience. And I've seen that a lot recently not just in romantic conversations or with client conversations, there's been other people where there's an immediacy that's like now or never type thing. And it's almost like, what happened to breathing and patience and calmness? We'll talk about that in the show anyway, but that idea that there's room to breathe in here. So being up so up close, and I'm guilty of it too back in the past, not so much now, but definitely years ago, I didn't realize there was so much more space to play in than there is that I do now know about. So we will talk about that.
Oh my goodness, I was so guilty of, I want an answer right now. You mean you want to think about it? And the thing that I learned really finally was if I'm bringing it up, I really had thought about it for a while. And this is their first time to hear that I'm thinking about it. And it would be nice if I gave them a moment to think about it too, since I've had a lot of moments to think about it. So that is certainly one of the close things that we're talking about, is that you're wanting more verbal closeness. You're wanting them to make more of a verbal commitment. You're wanting them to say more of the words. And if you haven't known that's what you want ahead of time, we always talk about what is it that you really want and need. First, figure that out, and then set it clearly to them. It's so unfair, and I certainly was guilty of that for a very long time, of they should just know. And how come they don't just know? And then I would get mad that they didn't just know.
Yeah.
So to figure out what you want, as far as you want more words, you want more time, you want to move to the next step, then say, gosh, this is what I'm thinking. What are you thinking? Or, wow, you're asking for a lot right now, and I'm not sure I'm prepared for that. Let me think about that, or have more conversation with you about it.
Yeah, I think a large part of what you're saying I want to speak to is we get caught up in other people's needs or desires or wants, and we don't hold boundaries. I mean, we talked about boundaries in the show before, and that's kind of what we're going to talk about today too, because that closeness and being almost confronted can feel like the invasion of your own boundaries, like stepping over and ignoring them. And so it's challenging sometimes to be on the receiving end, because we feel like we've been, careful words I use in this context, that we've our wishes haven't been honored. I'm being deferential because I say much more challenging words, which are in the news right now. So I'm being careful about that. But the idea being is that when we are being put upon that closely, it's almost like, give me some room to breathe. And that's what it can feel like. And in a relationship, especially after you cross a certain point in the relationship, there's an assumption that can be made by one or the other partner that now there's nothing in the way, and the other person's like still adjusting. And so the discord of the difference of perspective can really get in the way of the relationship thriving. And so how do you have the conversation without scaring the other person away, or upsetting the other person, having them run away, or having them do something even worse? So that way they can respect where you are, but isn't necessarily where they are at the moment.
Oh my goodness, what a big bunch of paragraphs you just said, because it's the truth.
I can.
And you're welcome. And just because one of you has said, this is what I'd really like or what I need, that doesn't mean the other person has to do it ever,
Right.
or certainly not right now. And often we're afraid to ask. We don't know if we deserve it. We don't know if we could have it. We don't know if it'll upset the other person. So it's one of the ways that we have talked about that if you start out having these little tiny requests in the beginning, when you're first getting to know each other, you can see what your tolerance is, what their tolerance is. Because if you can't even have those little tiny conversations in the beginning yourself, then you definitely need to talk to Barry and I. And if you have this tiny request and the other person goes, whoa, that's a lot to ask, then maybe you're not each other's people. Because if
Yeah.
you can start having little requests in the beginning and they go, oh, well, I could think about that. I'm not sure I could do that right now, but I could certainly do that later. Oh gosh, that's no big thing. I could absolutely do that. Or no, I will never. That's just a hard line for me. That, and don't take it personally. I think that's the hard thing, that we come up with this big thing that we're going to die without it, or gosh, they don't care about me if they can't do this. Whereas if you start out with something really little in the beginning, and if they can't, it's okay. And if they can, oh, good, then I'll ask for the next thing. And what would you like from me? Is there something you would like that I haven't done yet or that I don't know about yet? And that way you stay in the good proximity of the close word with each other. You keep adjusting as you're going along. I would just interrupt because I want to make sure I say this, because I was listening to our lovely Allison Armstrong the other day with this lovely boyfriend that she has. And she said, they now have this agreement, because generally when men get upset, they like leaving to calm down and get re-regulated and come back. So they think that when we leave, that automatically means that they should stay away. That doesn't automatically mean that for her. So what their signal is, if she goes to her room and she shuts the door, that means leave her alone. If she goes to her room and she leaves the door open, that's his signal to come ask her, what could he do next?
It's so simple. So true. Yeah.
It.
Yeah. And the thing, and it is true that a lot of times for us men, we need space to process or to digest it, even though most men, frankly, don't have a clue how to digest and process. But that's another story entirely. But those men who've done some level of work or understand themselves have more of an ability to take care of themselves by taking themselves out of situations so they can regroup and reintegrate. And unfortunately, a lot of women don't get that, because women oftentimes do want to be close, to vent, express, to be work through the upset. And because, and I've talked about this many times before, as you have, and as Alison taught us both, men and women process differently. We emote differently. We feel differently. So having different ways of processing between men and women, generally speaking, is something that both genders need to remember or be aware of, because it is so freeing when the other person gets what you're doing and why you're doing it, not thinking what you're doing is so weird, wrong, or different, it doesn't work,
Or they don't care about me, because when we go, oh, you're upset, come talk about it with me, it'll make you feel better. And they go, no, I need to go for a run. Well, that means he doesn't love me, he doesn't trust me, he doesn't care about me. No, he cares so much about you that when he goes for a run, he's going to be a much better person when he comes back.
He's doing it for you.
He really, absolutely. And I was so relieved when I learned that, because I did not know that at all in the beginning.
Yeah.
So the close, to figure out in all those different levels of mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual, what is closeness to you? Because, it's funny, because I've said more than once, I'm the kind of person that like a morning text and an afternoon, how you doing, and an evening text. And I have women clients who go, oh, every other day. Every other day is fine with me. A couple times a week, I like a phone call. Every other day, a text, perfectly fine with them. But they need to tell the guy who dated somebody like me that wants 3 a day, no, every other day, or I'm going to feel like you're too much. You're too needy, which he isn't. He was just doing what the person before had explained. So you explain, what kind of close do you need? What kind of pace do you need? What kind of contact? What kind of emotional contact? What kind of verbal? What kind of physical? Do you like being petted all the time? Do you like having somebody just be in the same room with you? Do you need space? You need somebody that doesn't come in your house for 3 or 4 days. I have a client that she does that. She every other day, that works for her. She wants him to come to her house every other day. I need a day in between. I said, well, then just tell him. I'm sure he'll be fine with it. And he couldn't have been more fine with it.
Yeah. Because basically he gets what he wants, which is the relationship he wants that works.
And he wants her happy when he shows up and not grouchy because he showed up 2 days in a row. They go on vacation, it's different, but she likes her house space every other day.
I think more and more people are choosing relationships where they don't actually spend their time enmeshed in each other's lives. And we talked about codependency before, and a lot of the issues that come up from this problem being too close are really under the heading of codependency, because it's so tempting to fall into that trap. And I said I've done this before myself. I was the lesson I had to learn through most of my teens and 20s was learning how to break the cycle of codependency, because it sucks to be that unaware of what I was doing wrong. And so, I mean, frankly, and just to say sidebar for a second, our episodes every week, for a lot of people are like, never thought of that before. And so I think one of the gifts we bring, and why I hope that everybody watching now or listening to our show on the podcast platforms, is realizing there's so much more to listen to and learn from us, because 260, 270 episodes, we've covered quite a bit of stuff. And I'm sure there's at least 1, 2, or 20 things we've talked about over the shows that might have changed your relationship paradigm. So do yourself a favor and make sure you do listen to us, because we do bring our gifts to you to help you. And we'll talk more about how you reach us later on. But just want to say that because it was bugging me to say that's one of the things. But the codependency piece, to get back to that, is a trap many people fall into, because as you said, it's like they have this thing like, if you leave me, you don't care about me. And because, as I said, for men, we need our own space sometimes. And for men, going for a run, going for a walk, just getting out of the house for an hour could be enough to reset, so then come back in and start conversing more clearly. But the codependent trap we fall into is, if they leave, I'm broken, or I failed, or they don't love me, or any of those sort of things. And so we have to watch both genders, we have to watch what we tell ourselves about things that happen with our partner, because oftentimes we're not telling ourselves the truth or even being accurate. So do yourself a favor, and if you're not sure, ask.
Oh boy, the asking. That's another scary thing. The telling it can be scary. The asking can be scary. And I've talked in the past about a couple where the physical touch is his highest and physical touch is her lowest. They have a wonderful sexual life, but that's really different. And if people really read in the love languages, that physical touch is not sex. It's that you like holding hands, you like having them touch you, you like being hugged all the time. And that's just her lowest priority, because she's got little kids who do that all day long to her. And he was saying, gosh, but I miss that. So what they did is it's called a chair and a half. So it's bigger than a chair and not as big as a love seat. And at night, after the kids are in bed, they sit there together. So they're together and they put their feet together. Now they're reading their books or doing their stuff, and that's fine with him. He doesn't need the talking. He's talked all day, but he needs their feet together. He needs their legs connected. And every once in a while she'll reach over and play with his hair. He is the most contented. He goes, if I knew how to purr, I'd be purring. And that made him so happy. And that it feels like it's because he's not on her, is how it felt, because it was what the kids were doing, hanging on, because they're little, hanging on her legs and stuff. And he goes, I didn't want to hang on her legs, but I wanted more. And so this was such a good compromise for both of them. And they both felt like she really wanted to make him happy, and he really needed this closeness, and they could still get their independent stuff done. And they're so happy now. So that's the thing, that people are afraid to ask because they think the other person can't give it to them, or they'll be mad that they ask, or they think, oh, I'm asking too much. And the other person thinks, well, I can't do that. But if you say, oh, I really need more closeness. What kind of closeness are you available to do? Well, I could sit next to you in a chair. I could put my feet on you. I could touch your hair now, and you'd be fine with, I'd be so fine with that. That was going to satisfy. Okay. Well, then how nice to come up with that. So that's the thing, that if you go, oh, we're having this place that we're stuck. We know we need something different, and neither one of us can come up with this. That's where Barry and I come in. So at least you admit, I'm saying I want one thing and he's saying he wants something else, and we can't figure out where the middle is. But try on your own and see if you can come up with a compromise, because I've not found too many things that aren't unsolvable if both people are willing to explore. Not give up themselves. You can't give up your core stuff, but willing to compromise, willing to say, oh, I could do that. I could move that way. Because then both people at the end of the night are really happier, more calmed down from the day because they got to do their independent things together. I love that compromise.
Oh, so do I. That is such a wonderful, I won't say compromise, but really a solution that works for both, which is really ideal. And yes, I mean, the 5 love languages was coming up for me as well earlier in the conversation. It is such a, it's such a useful book, but also people don't necessarily know what it really means and what it really can be done with, because it's really a starting point. You know, it gives you an idea of prototypes of what your primary preference is for love to be communicated. But the thing is, like with the 1.5 chair or chair and a half, is such a key reminder that physical touch doesn't mean you got to be constantly connected all the time, in the sense there's like so smothering or so other things. And that's the thing about closeness, is that closeness can be just being in the same room. Doesn't have to be touching for some people. With some people, closeness has got to be physical contact, skin to skin, no matter what. It's like, so you got to know for yourself, first of all, right? For me, it's hit and miss depending on what's going on. And so it's not all the time for me, even though physical touch is one of my primary qualities, but it's not all the time. You know, I love hugging and everything else, but I can go for a few minutes without, you know?
Sure.
Yeah. And so the idea being is that the closeness is relative. And then how, you know, too close is another story too, but just to be close in period in relationship, because yes, in a romantic relationship, especially, and when you pass the initial few dates, you want to know you're close to the other person, even if it's not about geography, but it's about emotionally close. So we're not talking about close as being always a bad thing, but physical proximity is a scale as well. It's like close is how close. Is it touching? Is it 2 feet away? Is it 5 feet away? Is it 10 feet away? In the same house, in the same town? What's closeness to you? So you're really going to need to know for yourself, what does closeness mean? So then you know when it's too close, and you can work with that, which we're covering.
Which, you know, then we get into long distance relationships, and how much time do you need to spend on the phone and on video and in person, and how do you both work it out that it feels like, I like your word, solution, that both people can live with. Because I have 2 former clients, they get back with me now and then when there's a bump. They live 1,500 miles away, so they have to get on a plane. And one couple, it's a lot of work. It takes 12 hours because they have to stop, you know, at another airport, and storms, and it's just a big thing. And it's worth it to them, but it's a really big challenge. And they keep having to go, are you still okay with this? Yeah, I'm still okay with this, because they're waiting for the other person to retire. But it's been almost 5 years and they still keep doing it happily. So that's the thing, you know, if you're not geographically close, how do you still stay emotionally attached? How do you still stay mentally attached? So you have all these different ways that you say, what kind of closeness do I need with this person? Do I want them in all my business, as my grandmother would have said? Do you want them in your business or not? You want them to meet all your friends, some of your friends? You know, we're going to talk about all sorts of other things about what could be close, or close enough, or too close, right?
Absolutely. After the break, especially. So you want to do a quick intro before we go to the break?
Yes. So before we have our wonderful commercial break, if this has at all been intriguing for you, and you're like, I love when you, Barry, said, I've never thought about it that way before. Barry and I would be so happy to go over that conversation with you.
Yes.
So the way to reach me is to go to my website, which is www.theperfectcatch.com. Scroll to the middle of the page and click on the questionnaire, what's holding me back from love. And once you fill out the questionnaire, you'll get access to my online calendar, and you can schedule a complimentary conversation with me at your convenience. You can also send me an email at Christine@theperfectcatch.com. And how do people reach you, Barry?
Well, similar to Christine, you can get to me from my website, which also have a link to my calendar. So you go to barryselby.com. And at the top of the screen on my website is a button that says Let's Chat. And that you click on that button, it takes you to my calendar, and you fill out a questionnaire, and we schedule a 20-minute Zoom conversation. That's my gift to you. So we can really see where you are, what you're looking for, and if I can help you, because I can't guarantee I can help you, but at least we can find out if I can. And if you want to drop me an email, you just send one to barry@barryselby.com.
So we're going to take a quick station break with our wonderful station that sends out our podcasts for us, the newstreamingnetwork.com. And then we'll be back talking more about, well, how close is too close on Let's Talk Dating with Christine and Barry.
See you in a moment.
Thanks so much to the newstreamingnetwork.com for putting out our podcasts and our shows for us. And this is Let's Talk Dating with Christine and Barry. And today we're talking about how close is too close.
Indeed.
On all different levels, mental, emotional, physical, spiritual, friends, family, financially. I mean, really, there's a lot to talk about. Right now, there's such a trend of people that are living apart together. You know, do you really want to live in the same house? I always listen to Dr. Laura while I'm having lunch, and there was a man saying, I like visiting her house, but I could never live there. Doesn't want to change it. So, but he was perfectly fine just going back and forth. So do that. You know, at this age, often we're kind of set in our ways and we kind of like our decor, and lots of people have very full closets and drawers and they don't really have enough room. I mean, maybe you have a drawer and a spot in the closet you could stay for like a weekend or a week, but you know, to move in, it was a lot of work when I moved in with my late husband. Oh my gosh. So to think about, is it fine? Do you live close enough that you could just keep driving back and forth? And how often is it that you want to see each other? And is there room for you to leave a few things there or not? And to decide together, first, what's comfortable for you, and then ask them what's comfortable for them. And then the other thing that people forget, especially men, because there's the funny joke about how this couple in their 90s goes to the therapist and she says, I know he's never really loved me. And the therapist looks at the guy and he goes, is that really the truth? He goes, no, I told her on the day we got married, I loved her. Doesn't she know I'd tell her if I changed my mind? The therapist said sometimes those ladies like to hear it over and over and over. So one of the things I suggest to my couple clients is to just keep checking in. So this is what we agreed to. Are you still okay with it? Especially if everybody goes, yeah. Like the couple that's doing all this flying. Oh my gosh. Are you still okay with it? And not like, oh, we have to break up. I mean, often people think that that's what's going to come, but usually that's not. It's just, I just need to complain about it today because it was extra hard and there were crabby people on the plane and in the airport and we had to be on the ground for a long time. Or, you know, could you come a little more often because it seems to be easier for you? That would be a good request. That doesn't mean they have to do it. Right. At least you've said it and they can go, oh yeah, I can see why it is harder for you. Yeah, let's have a conversation about that. Because otherwise, if we start being mad or frustrated, or we don't say, the seeds like a weed of resentment get planted and they are insidious and they kill love.
It is so easy to fall into that trap. And, you know, I talked earlier about the boundaries of the piece, but yes, falling into that trap of making assumptions or just not knowing what to say. You know, one of the worst things I remember people saying, you know, you don't want to hear from your partner, they want to have the talk, you know, in quotes, because that's the thing. It's so weighty and so challenging. So we've talked about this in the show before about how it's so important to have like a check-in every few weeks or every week or so in the relationship, just as an ongoing barometer to see where things are. Because you might discover things are going amazingly well and nothing needs to change. Or you might discover, you know what, I love what we have, but I want to change this bit to make it even better. But if you don't have those conversations, you'll never know. And then finally, it's like, I can't stay now because it's been so long and nothing's changed. So to create an ongoing check-in support system in your relationship is definitely a guaranteed improvement over just assuming everything's going to be working out fine. But the thing I want to say about boundaries for a second, because talking about this closeness piece, is, and I used to feel this way myself, you know, I wanted to be so close to my partner. There was no molecules between us sort of thing, you know, that level of intimacy and that low connection. And I didn't realize until I actually got what I wanted, how much I didn't want it. It was an illusion. It was a fantasy in my head about, oh, that's what I wanted. But I realized I needed my own space, and I didn't realize I needed my own space until I didn't have it. It's one of those things we learn along the way. And when we lose what we think we want or we have, that's when we start realizing we missed it. We didn't think about it before. And so the challenge is that we don't always know before it happens that we want something different than what we get. And boundaries is one of those things that we don't necessarily know we have boundaries until they get trampled by somebody else. And in intimacy, there's almost like you're not allowed to have boundaries with you and your partner, which is not true. But like you're saying with the couple who like living, being in love but living separately, there's such a power to honoring that respectfully and also having boundaries that work. So you want to navigate relationships from a much more self-aware place so you can have what you want.
Yes. And there's so many benefits to having a check-in regularly. Because what I found is how nice to hear the good things. Because I tell people we need to start out with the good things. What's going well? Each take a turn. You talk about all the good things. I'll talk about all the good things. Because we don't always just talk about the good things. So you have a regular time of that. And then, yes, is there something you'd like different? So you get all the good things, and hopefully there's maybe only one or two things you'd like. Oh, I'd like even more of this good thing. And maybe I'd like something different because this is something I'd like different. The
Yeah.
other thing is you catch something when something has changed. I'm having trouble sleeping. Me, nothing to do with you, but here's a way you could support me. Or, my mom's having a problem and I just need extra support around that. It's still not you. But if
Hmm.
I'm crabby and I need a different kind of closeness or a different, at least I'm going to check in with you and not just be suffering in silence or thinking I have to do it on my own. We already have this pattern of saying, yeah, I need your support for this.
Right.
Or, gosh, you're seeming a little crabby lately. Is there something going on with you? You have a safer place to have that conversation with somebody. So I'm needing a little space or I'm needing a little more closeness. That when you've already established, I'm trustworthy for you to say, I'm not going to crumble, and you're trustworthy that you're not going to get all upset if I say this, and you're going to be trustworthy to tell me that when something bigger does come up, because it's just gonna,
Yep.
hormonal things, health things, stuff just comes up, that you now go, okay, we're going to get over this bigger thing together, or we'll get some outside help. So that's the thing about the regular check-in, is that you've had this baseline of, we've had all these really great conversations of so many positive things, that when something hard comes up, nobody thinks they're going to die. Because that, oh, we need to
Right.
talk conversation, men especially, they just hate those words because the boom is coming. Because we've been saving up, and you're going to hear the last 6 months of stuff that you don't even remember what the heck we're talking about. And it's not the way you remembered, even if you do. It's horrible that if it's only been a week or so, you're going to go, yeah, 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 I remember that thing. Or, gosh, the thing that happened yesterday. Oh my God, I do remember the thing yesterday. It's
Right.
so much easier on everybody, I think.
Absolutely. There's the old joke about the husband and wife together, and the wife's like saying, you know, she keeps reminding about something. It's like, he said you get round to it. You told me 6 months ago I'll get round to doing it, sort of thing. And the idea being is like he'll do it in his own timing. So having the communications just to ensure that you're on track is an important thing, but also how you do it is a good thing to do too, because it's tempting to remind the other person with the presumption they don't remember what you did or what you said or what you agreed to. But if you do it as a place where you recognize the person does remember and you're just confirming it, it's a different approach to the other person, so it doesn't feel as confrontive. It becomes more amenable to do it that way. So watching how we communicate what our needs are, and also the things that we think the other person may or may not know, may not remember, it's challenging to sometimes shift from the assumption we think they're doing something wrong to, I'm just checking if this is what's lined up for you or if that's what's working for us. So there's a nuance to this as well. Just to make sure people get that part as well in this part, because it's easy to take things the wrong way when you're not necessarily feeling aligned in the process. And if one partner is feeling deserted or distressed because the other person isn't being there close to them, there can be a whole level of reactivity that shows up that may be the fact the guy was, the other person was preoccupied, or maybe something happened to a friend of theirs and they're really thinking about them and they've been present to their partner. It's not the end of the world. It's not breaking the relationship up. It's just that the person's energy was focused somewhere else. So if you think about the fact that the person is just because they care, you can be nicer to them. It's like, what's going on? It feels like you're not connected. Is there anything I can help you with? Is something we need to talk about? It's like little things like that can change the paradigm and soften the hardness of the assumptive separation.
Yep. I have had that happen in the last couple weeks where I think I'm a pretty good guesser, and I thought my track record was pretty 50-50. And lately I found I was 80% wrong. I'm glad I paused and said, tell me more about that. Because it was a whole lovely. I liked the reason. I liked their reason way better than the one I made up in my head. So I'm really glad I asked.
Yep.
It was wild, Barry. It was wild. I was like, well, this is a whole new interesting thing that's happening in my life right now. All variety of men in all sorts of different circumstances. It's been kind of fascinating. So it's encouraging me to keep doing it.
I like it. Yeah, that is. I love when you said that, because it's so easy to get, and we do definitely get caught up in the belief system that we're right all the time. It's like, no, sometimes it's nice to be proven wrong when it's something that is better than you thought it could be. So the whole thing too, yeah. I want to take up things to the closest piece again, because it is, and I want to also disagree with one thing you said, because you said about closeness can come up as an issue on the physical, mental, and emotional levels, and the spiritual too. I don't personally believe that being close spiritually has anything that can ever be too close or not close, because spirituality to me is so expansive and so non-physical that there's no boundary, barrier, or anything like that. Even though I know when I meditate, I like meditating alone versus being in a crowd. That's about physical space, even though it's about spiritual, it's that sort of thing. So I agree, definitely physical, mental, emotional. There are things where we can get encroached on and be like we're too close to something. We want to change things. And the physical one's the one we normally default to think is the reason, but truth is mental and emotional ones come up too. And so oftentimes we may feel out of sorts, or our mind's running around in a circle because we feel like we're trapped in something, because there's not enough room for us to breathe or to think or to focus differently. So again, self-awareness is always key, as I've talked about so many times. And so understanding is you start to feel that pressure building up and it's not physical. Maybe someone's impinging on yourself energetically that you want to be able to do something about. So self-awareness again, because it's the way you can discover, oh, I feel like my boundary's been pressed on. Somebody's being too close to me. What is going on? Somebody's leaning in too far. Let's make some rearrangements and change the paradigm.
That's a really good point, because is your portal open? Is your door open too much? You need to close your boundary to not let them get in. If somebody's affecting you, especially somebody that isn't anybody in your life, if they're a perfectly lovely person, but they're not important to you, but they're affecting you somehow. Why is that? Why are they reminding you of somebody? Are you in a vulnerable place? Are you haven't had enough sleep or enough to eat that they're bothering you? Think about that. That's why they're too, or people that stand next to you too closely at the grocery store, or people. I have such a hard time with really loud noises. Like if a siren goes by, I just have to plug my ears. It hurts my body. So to think about when you're in a space where it's impinging too close to you, how do you get yourself in a more comfortable place? How do you re-regulate your life? And the spiritual thing I was thinking about is when you're having a religious difference, and if it's an important person to you, how do you navigate? Do you go to your separate houses of worship? Do you try each other's house of worship? Can you be okay with you having your separate spaces? Because I had one client with that. It was fascinating, because usually it's been kind of a hard line with people. They either have a thing that they believe in and they want somebody to believe in there's just no other way, and that's what we find for them. But there was one where they had so many other good things that they worked really hard to work it out, and they most of the time went to someplace separate, and they visited a little, and it worked out okay. So that was the thing where they wanted to see how close was the mandatory for them. So that was but your own personal spirituality, certainly you have to decide how often you're going to go, what you're going to believe who the people you're going to surround yourself with. So you need to always start out with your own personal. Absolutely. Because how do you set boundaries with the outside world if you haven't set your own boundary? I remember the book about if you don't believe in something, you're going to fall for anything. So you need to say, this is my belief. This is what works for me. And how do I navigate that with the people around me?
Yeah. That's when I was just reflecting on some of the people I go to the same spiritual center I do, and how some of them are higher up in the hierarchy, like me, they're spiritual counselors or actually become ministers, and how they're in marriages where the other person doesn't have any relationship to the same place. And part of me just wonders how they make that work, because that doesn't sound easy. Because I feel like any spiritual organization I'm part of, I'm in line with, I want partners to be involved as well. That's my personal preference. I'm not saying it's the only one, but I see people who have this thing where their partner will never come to the same place that we do. And they get it working for them. And so I guess what I'm trying to say here is there's a spectrum of choices, and there's no right way or wrong way, but it is about honoring and respecting the choices being made. And that's the other part too. And it's what you said as well, is that it's important that we respect each other's choices as our own choice, and not that you have to change the other person's mind or you have to give up yours for them as well. It's like, no, you have honor the space you have, honor your choice you make, and honor the choices they make. And it's okay to have that, even when you're in an intimate relationship.
And that nothing falls below or stays below the good enough line. I'd be fascinated to hear what their answer was if you asked them, tell me how you make that work. I'm
I'm
curious.
kind of curious. Yeah, I'm not promising I'll get answers, but I'm tempted to ask. Within,
I'd be
you know,
so curious. Yeah, I think that's very curious, because the people that have really different political beliefs right now, I found it really curious how they, most of them just say they don't talk about it, and that they've made sure they have enough people on whatever side they are to talk with it, because they still have to get it out. That's been the most common thing I've heard. But I haven't asked religious people. I think that would be fascinating.
Yeah, the political ones become a thing too. I have a friend of mine, or friends of mine, their kids are now just becoming up to college age, and they're in the middle of this because the husband is very right-leaning and the wife is very left-leaning. And because of the current political situation, the current political climate is the word I want to use, that difference is becoming more of a chasm, more than just a difference of opinion. Because, 30 years ago, that was just like, oh, different choices, no big deal. Now it's like life or death, it seems like. And so it is a challenge on that level. And religion and spirituality have a different energy too. So having the conversation, as we said, quite a few things, talking about what's going on, what's happening, so that you actually have understanding is important, because it's easy to get assumptive, and that's a trap you fall into. So being able to communicate and learn where the other person is and where you are, so you can work it together. Absolutely ideal.
The baseline of our coaching, right, Barry? So if all this is spoken to you, Barry and I would be so happy to have a conversation with you. And the way to do that with me is to go to my website, which is www.theperfectcatch.com. Click on the What's Holding You Back from Love questionnaire in the middle of that. And then it will give you access to my online calendar, and you can schedule a complimentary conversation with me, and we'll see where you are and if we want to work together. You can also, while you're on my website, go to the top and download my book. It's an ebook. It's free, and I'd be so excited for you to gain that wonderful information that I have there for you, with lots of tips about dating and relationships, and I'd be so excited to hear what you learn from it. You can also join my mailing list. You'll get this podcast every week in your email, and you'll also learn what I'm doing in the next quarter of this year. You can also go to the bottom of the screen and website, and all my social medias there of Facebook and X and LinkedIn and I wanted to say Twitter still, and YouTube and Pinterest. And the YouTube has all of Barry and my wonderful podcast that we've been doing for the last 5 years. You can also send me an email at Christine@theperfectcatch.com. And how do people reach you, Barry?
In a similar fashion, here's the information you can get in touch with me. Again, my site is barryselby.com, where you can get on my calendar at the top of the page. Also on the homepage, there's a couple other things. At the bottom of the page, there's an option to opt into my email list, which you can just do without buying anything or doing it. You just get on my email list. Because I do send out an email every week with a replay of this show and everything else I'm working on as well. Similar to Christine, I have things brewing, new things coming up. You want to keep track of what we're up to. Definitely recommend that. At the middle of the screen is the first of my 2 assessment/quizzes that I created. The first one on my homepage is actually your relationship readiness. How ready are you for a relationship? So if you go to barryselby.com/quiz, or click on the button in the middle of the screen, that will take you to a fairly detailed assessment of where you are in your dating profile, what's working, what's not, and what you're looking for. You'll get an email from me explaining where you are on the spectrum and what I can do to help you with that. So that's why you do that way. The second assessment is not actually on my site as a button you can press, but you can go direct to the link, which is barryselby.com/self-quiz, because it is a self-assessment. Basically, how's your relationship with yourself? It covers 7 deep areas of where you are in relation to yourself, what's working, what's not working, what can be improved. That, because it's a much more detailed quiz, will give you a PDF document you can go through and review at your leisure, all those 2. So definitely sign up for that and go through the same thing again. I offer my help if you want to find out more information. Additionally, on my website is my book, which has been out for Yeah, 13 years now. Wow, it's been there for a while now. I did revise it 3 years ago, but you can get my book on Amazon. But if you go to barryselby.com/book, you can click on the audio track that's at the top of the page, which gives you a nice little overview, Cliff Notes version of my book that explains how my book works, what it's about. And frankly, it'll give you a good forecast if you want to go get the book. And then you can click on the button to the bottom of the page to go buy it if you want to do that. You can send me an email at barry@barryselby.com. And on social media, it's my name, Barry Selby, on most of the platforms. So you can find me on Barry Selby on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on Pinterest, on YouTube, of course, because that's where all my shows are, include this show, and over 1,000 other videos are up there. And if you want to find me on Instagram or Threads, it's The Real Barry Selby. And I think that covers it.
And you can watch us live every Thursday at 1 o'clock Pacific and 4 o'clock Eastern. And we'd love for you to submit questions. We would be happy to answer them while we're here on the air. Then you can watch our replays, watch our cute faces on YouTube and Roku. So you can take us with them, right? And just listen.
Yeah, our show is great on video because you can watch our faces and also you can sit and watch. But if you're not sitting still and you want to hear us when you're out and about in the world, listen to us as a podcast, because our show is also on the podcast platforms on Apple, Spotify, Amazon, wherever you listen to your podcasts under Let's Talk Dating with Christine and Barry. You can take us with you when you're shopping, when you're driving, when doing other things where you can't look at a screen because, frankly, you've got to look where you're going. But definitely get some good tips and information that way. And you can scan through all 260 odd episodes to find what really touches you, what really challenges you, or what you want to really listen to. So enjoy our show.
And we'd love for you to like them and share them with people that you think in your life would like some information and help with their dating and relationships, and leave us a review.
That'd be wonderful.
That'd be wonderful. And we will be back next week with some more fun talks about dating and relationships.
We'll see you then. Take care of yourselves.
Bye for now.
Bye.